lanes, the bike lanes are really narrow, and it's like, it's very difficult sometimes when people like school or like, yeah. So we think we can make them bigger. And the first two pictures, there's something blocking the bike lane, which is making it even smaller. As I said, they're really small, so it's making them like really small. So our solution is to widen the bike lane so bikers have more room to bike. And instead of just making the whole road bigger, we can just let the bike lane be with more space on the car lane. And using thinner car lanes, they can force the cars to go down. That will be safer for the bikers. Thank you.
Does not connect to.
Hi, I have an idea.
Hi, Dylan.
I'm Mary.
And today now we're going to be talking about a different way, another solution that we can. But first of all, before we start, I just want to thank you all for sharing your time with us so we could share our voice again. Okay, so to get started, we could paint the bike lane. As you can see in one picture, it shows what some bike lanes are. Another picture,
Okay, just keep going.
in the other picture, you can see that that's what could be in all of the streets. And Menlo Park and Fort Athens. All we need to do is paint them, and as Stephanie said, make them a little brighter.
Hey, Dylan, hello everyone, my name is Aaron McGonagall. Thank you, Dylan. Hello everyone, my name is Aaron McGonagall. Not the slide. I know, go back. And I'm talking about why our bike lanes should be visible. First of all, let's try to make the paint of the bike lanes glow in the dark, so that cars can see them easily. If we can't maintain this paint, let's put reflectors on the bike lanes so that the cars can see the bike lanes. Recently, we had an incident which involved a biker and the driver. The way to stop this is making the bike lanes more visible, and so that the bikers can be more safe.
Hi again, and I'm going to share a personal story. So every day I bike with my dad on Middlefield Road, and the cars tend to veer into the bike lane and speed up and go really fast, and that makes me feel scared. So far you've heard the ideas are designed to make it safe for kids like me to bike.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Tom.
Hi, I'm Elliot.
I'm Oliver. As you've heard before, the problem is cars keep veering into the
Our solution is that we can either put recycled plastic effective delineators or clean boxes to protect the bikers and walkers from the cars.
If we put the recycled delineators or anchor boxes, and people that normally drive cars will then ride bikes because they feel more safe. So that's less cars off the road and less traffic. So the delineators thought of would be about 40 inches, 5 to 10 pounds, and 95% recycled, which would be enough to protect the car from going into the bike lane. Thank you.
Can one of you tell them about the plastic bags you collect at school and how those can be turned into the delineators?
At school, there's this program that we use, and this time it's 1,000 pounds of plastic to make a bench. So we thought we could use some of that recycled plastic to make the recycled delineators. Thank you again.
Wait, that's two. Hi again. And I'm Erin. We're gonna be talking about how we can make it safer on the path on Middlefield. As you can see in the first two photos, well, on the first photo, there's no sidewalk at all. And it makes it really unsafe for either a walker or biker because the bikers can, well, like, veer into the not sidewalk and the bikers can, like, maybe run into the walkers if the walkers just want to walk on the bike lane. In the second photo, you see that as bad because you might not see it in the picture, but there's a hole that might be really unsafe for some dogs.
As you can see in the third picture, the sidewalk is basically just dirt. So it might be unsafe or hard for wheelchairs to go on. Like, for example, like, a wheelchair might bump over a rock and it might fall. And we can fix this by making that concrete tip.
We actually think it could be concrete, but another way we can make it better is we could just flatten out so it'd be easier, but we wouldn't have to put as much work into it.
We can also pick up litter. For example, plastic bags. If you see plastic bags, that'd be really bad. So plastic bags are something that we want to throw away.
We want to keep the nature vibe though. We like the trees that are there, making it look better, the shade that it provides. So we want to keep all those trees and plants and bushes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Hi again, I'm Dylan.
Hi again, I'm Katie.
So this time we'll be talking about protect barriers between the road and the path.
We could put bushes there. So like if the bikers view into the sidewalk, there would be something blocking it, but it wouldn't move.
For example, we could put an English holly on the outside to make it more stiff so the bikers would veer into it. And a lamb's ear in the inside, so if people like little kids or elderly people or just any people fall down into the bushes, then they wouldn't get hurt. Use as a plant that would protect. We use these plants, like as Quinn said, to keep the nature vibe going, but to also make sure that there's not too much concrete or waste on our streets. Thank you.
Never mind.
There's not one more slide, we're good.
Wait, I missed one?
So that concludes their presentation, and I have to say that only 3 of our groups were able to come tonight and they were partial. So those last 2, they did that impromptu for their teammates who aren't here tonight. So rock on, you guys. That's hard for adults to do. I love that you guys stepped in for your mates to do that. And now they're available for questions if you have questions for them. You guys wanna go stand up there so
Yeah,
they
why
can,
don't you
they
go
can
stand up so you can see you.
Pressure's on David, better get a question first.
Okay.
So, thank you very much for coming and sharing all of this research with us. Of the various proposals that you laid out for us this evening, which one do you collectively feel is the most important, or where would you start with it?
So maybe widening and making the bike lanes brighter.
Right.
Because, widening and making them brighter. Because that would just make everyone feel more safe, even the people in the cars.
Also, like, it's more visible for the road and the sidewalk, if in between it's brighter to see. Delineators will also help so that cars wouldn't accidentally go into the bike lane by accident.
Can I ask, how many of you ride or walk to school? That's great. And how many of you live on this side of Middlefield, and how many live on the other side of Middlefield?
There's only
How many has to cross Middlefield?
I could like ride my bike to school, but if I live on a really busy street and like lots of intersections, so.
That was a great question. How many of you have to cross over Middlefield to get to campus? Okay.
How many of you have parents who would let you ride your bike to school if they thought you were gonna be safer?
definitely.
And as a parent from Suburban Park, I had 3 kids ride from Suburban Park to Encinal and to Hillview, all over town.
Yeah.
From like 3rd grade.
What was the most important thing you learned by doing this project? And lots of you can answer, it doesn't need to be one person.
I think one of the most important things that we all learned is how much our town is like, in how much is done, but it needs to improve on, and how much I never noticed that the sidewalks were hard to walk on until when I walked around Encinal. And I also feel like it's cool how we are able to like speak up to you guys and make a difference. I've never been to any of these city councils and learned a lot about the cities, about these places here.
Like he said, it's not just about like making the streets safer, or like bikers safer, but also like learning like how to add like how to like speak up when you
For those of you who want to come to the city council meetings, there's one tomorrow night. So we would love to have you back. Not to present, but to be in the audience and ask whatever question.
Also too, on Middlefield, if your kids or parents haven't noticed, we've recently reduced the speed from what it was to 25 as part of the safety corridor improvements.
And on Encinal, it's 15.
During school hours.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the city, county, area governments and San Mateo County Transportation Authority's countywide transportation plan presentation.
Will that be presented? Get a couple of fifth graders. Apparently they can win. Okay, if your job feels threatened. Carry on.
Hi, good evening, committee. I'm Jeffrey Lincat. I'm from the City County Association of Governments in San Mateo County, or CCAG for short. Thank you for having us on your agenda tonight. I'm here to give a presentation on our countywide transportation plan update. Next slide.
I have a totally random thought. Do the fifth graders know what you're about to present, and might that be of interest to any of them, given that they're a bit of a similar?
I feel like yeah, I think there's some connection there. But yeah.
They're all that.
They have homework to do.
Yeah, sorry.
Come on, Tom.
It's been a while for me.
So just a quick overview of what we're presenting tonight. I'll go over the purpose of the CPP update for San Mateo County. Next, we'll look at how we move in San Mateo County based on kind of our latest findings and engagement. We'll be looking at, and then we'll start to look ahead into the horizon year of the plan, which is 2050, and then I'll conclude with next steps. Next slide. And so this plan is a collaboration between CCAG and the San Mateo County Transportation Agency. CCAG is the designated county transportation agency, or CTA, for the county. So we're tasked with a lot of the policy development here at the countywide level, while our friends over at the TA, they provide funding through the local sales tax measures, Measure A and Measure W, to help fund and deliver transportation projects in the county. Next slide. Next slide. And so what is a CPP? So a CPP creates a vision for the future of transportation in the county. It sets priorities and it guides decision-making at CCAG and at the TA as we plan, fund, and help deliver local and regional transportation improvements. And this plan will help feed into the regional plan, which is called Plan Bay Area 2050, which is developed by the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, or MTC. I know there's a lot of acronyms in this presentation. Next slide. And really, the CPP is an umbrella for many more detailed, specific plans. You know, on the slide here, we have our, we have our comprehensive bike plan for the county. Our transit agencies have their own specific strategic plans. And so it's really, this CPP will really kind of help inform future specific planning efforts moving forward. Next slide. And so what's been completed since the last CPP? What you see now is kind of just some of the bigger efforts that have been completed since the last CPP. The last CPP was adopted back in 2017. So needless to say, there has been a lot of changes to how we move and get around, for school and work and such. But just a sample of what's been completed: the 101 express lanes, Caltrain electrification, and our 101 smart corridor, which is our incident management system. And what's not on here that I did want to just highlight is that there's been a number of local transportation and active transportation projects that have been delivered since the last. Next slide. So this is the current timeline or schedule that we have that we're embarking on. We're here we just kicked off our CPP update now. We're here we're defining the vision and goals for the CPP. We're really looking at defining those goals based on what we've seen across the county in terms of our existing transportation network and what we've heard in the past 5 years through other planning efforts. We really wanted to not recreate the wheel and really use and leverage those past engagement efforts to help aggregate that data, and really want to validate that data with your committee's experience here locally to make sure that the vision and goals that we have are reflective of what's happening at the local level. Then we'll proceed with developing those strategies and generating a project list for the plan, and then we'll come back to the councils in this county at the draft plan scheduled around summer of next year. Next slide. So just some key outcomes for this update. We really want this to be a practical plan. We don't want it to live on the shelf. We really want our jurisdictions to be able to use it to help guide them in their local planning processes. We want to identify pilot programs to adapt to changing policies and technologies and travel patterns. We want to really look at strategizing our funding to position ourselves for other state and federal funding sources. We really want to create a efficient way to measure progress by looking at having a short list of metrics to gauge the health of our transportation system and measure it transparently and be able to easily report those on a timely basis. And finally, we want to advance equity and help that guide us in our funding decisions. Next slide. And so moving on to how we move into San Mateo County. So again, we've had a number of planning efforts in the last 5 years. This is kind of just a sampling of where we've been out into the county. Next slide. And so yeah, this is about 30,000 touch points through various online surveys or in-person events in multiple languages and through different advocacy and CPO meetings. So we really have amassed a lot of feedback to help guide us.
Can you give a little more detail to that? How you're collecting it, where you're going to collect it? There are a lot of numbers that you're going to show later, and the question is, where did you collect the majority of that data, or how? We've had environmental, Earth Day events and other types of events here, and I don't think we've seen you here to collect any data in the Atherton area. And as I've gone over some of the data, we talked about the number of people that are there and things like that. I've ridden the train, for example, even just recently, and there's not very many people on it, other than the express ones. And I personally, I would like to see, I used to be able to get to see a train by train utilization, of how many people were on that, how many ticket payers were actually on each individual train. Because a lot of the trains and also the buses, when they get down here, they don't have anybody on them. And so when I see, we want to see a lot more buses and more people want to get on the buses, it's not from this area. So I'd like to know a little bit more of the demographics and where and how you're collecting it, because I have to wonder that.
Yeah, so we, between the various agencies, so Samtrans, which is our buses, and Caltrain and CCAG and the TA, we've done a number of planning efforts. I could point to the TA has done recently work along the 101 corridor through 101 Active, which they've done a lot of outreach through there. I can't speak to the specific details of where they've done it, like the location wise or what events they've done, but overall it's been a mix of online surveys, employer distributed surveys, and in-person events for those individual efforts. But we are, as part of this effort, we're trying to go to all the transportation related committees in the county to help us validate some of the findings that we've seen.
Well, when you're having an online survey, it would be nice if you would contact us so that we could put that out in our weekly newsletter so our people could actually respond to it. Because I asked a number of residents, and they're also over at the library recently, have they seen any of this and been asked any questions, and the answer is no.
We are in our next phase of this outreach. We will be setting up a website, and we'll be making sure to reach out to different the PI, the public information teams of all our jurisdictions to make sure they get something.
Great, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
Next slide. So starting to get into what we've been seeing in terms of commuting, drive alone is still the majority of how people get to work at 70%. We often talk about how people get around in terms of commuting because that's how it's measured in the census data. But we know there are a lot of different there are lots of different non-work type trips. Can't remember the actual percentage, but there's a lot of trips that are under 3 miles that are being used by personal vehicles. So when we talk about mode shift, we're really looking to expand the options for those shorter non-work trips. And just another thing to note from this slide is that there's a lot of inflow and outflow of employers and employees leaving the county that work either in the Silicon Valley or San Francisco. There's a lot of employees coming into the county for work. Next slide. And so what we're hearing in terms of regional connections, if just to look at based on some surveys from a recent engagement, is that the numbers on your left reflect kind of the percentage of how people get around in inter-county mode, but ask if their preferred mode, what would their preferred road be if conditions improved. So we're seeing that a lot of people would shift to taking the train rather than driving alone. So there's some gains in the percentage of people wanting to take the train and the bus and the ferry versus driving alone. Next slide.
And was there San Mateo area in there? Because I see San Francisco, Alameda, Santa Clara, but where's San Mateo?
Yeah, so that, if I could go back to that slide, that question was really which county would you like to be prioritized for improving travel connections with San Mateo County? And so
Sorry.
looking at, yeah.
Okay,
So
got it.
yeah.
No problem. Thank you. My mistake.
All right. Next slide. Okay, so we're gonna start talking about our different networks here. So I'm gonna start with the roadway network. The county is anchored by US 101 and I-280 with other corridors, connectors like SR 92, Highway 1 on the coast, Skyline Boulevard, and SR 84. One thing also to note is that warehouse and light industrial uses are concentrated along Bayshore, anchored by SFO in the Port of Redwood City, and US 101 is the primary freight corridor for the county, with other support from El Camino Real. Next slide. So what we're hearing in terms of the roadways, traffic congestion is top transportation concern in the North and South County. On the coast side, because of the visitors that come on the weekends, it's kind of the weekend congestion and emergency access that are their top concerns. Some specific locations for improvement to include obviously El Camino Real in this area, SR1, the 92-101 interchange, University Avenue and Willow Road. And what we've been hearing, driving feels useful and mostly reliable, but on the other side, it's unsafe and expensive. Next slide. Moving on to our transit network. So we have our primary transit providers, which is Caltrain, Samtrans, WETA, which is the ferry, and BART. Major rail services along the bay side, mostly bus service on the coast side, and there's also the employer shuttles from transit stations to employment hubs in the county. Next slide. So what we're seeing in terms of the rail, so that's primarily BART and Caltrain, the ridership continues to climb, but it's currently still at a 50 to 70% of pre-pandemic numbers. Transit access, what we've seen is that in the north side of the county, most people drive or take local transit to regional transit. I think it's because of the less dense land use that's in the northern county when compared to the mid or south coast. Most people are walking to regional transit. And then we also have kind of the busiest 5 stations in the county, Redwood City, Millbrae, Hillsdale, Daly City, and Colma. Next slide. So what we're seeing in terms of the bus and shuttle, San Fran's ridership is up to 100% of pre-pandemic levels. I believe there's a lot of riders that rely on San Fran's for their non-work trips, which I think accounts for they're doing really great in terms of their ridership numbers. But on the other side, shuttle ridership is below 50%, and it's going to be attributed to the change in work, the change in return to work in office work patterns we're seeing. Next slide. And so what we're hearing from transit, I think, kind of the top line is more frequent and reliable transit in the county. People want to take transit, but they need more frequent and reliable service, more first and last mile solutions. I think that's kind of the big comment we're hearing. Really want to have more options for first and last mile, and then more affordable fare options and commuter benefits. Next slide. All right, so moving on to our active transportation network. So there are some existing countywide connections, but most facilities are provided within each of the cities. There is a backbone bike network plan to connect the county through low-stress bikeways, and there's currently a countywide sidewalk inventory currently underway as part of our upcoming comprehensive bike and pedestrian plan. Next slide. I think it was validated from our future city planners and engineers that safety while biking, walking, and rolling was one of the highest concerns identified in the 101 corridor and in the county. People want to bike, but they need more intersection improvements, more ways to cross 101, and better lighting, more benches and trees and restroom spots on the routes. Next slide. One more. And so just some other transportation efforts underway. There's a Caltrain is doing a grade separation corridor crossing. Samtrans is working on the Grand Boulevard initiative on El Royale. CCAD, we're working on the countywide local roadway safety plan implementation. The 92101 interchange is currently under construction for operational improvements at the interchange. And the TA's 101 corridor connect is also underway.
So on your grade separation, are you working to get grants for doing that? You know, the latest Caltrain plan that I saw, of course, modify it during rush hour time, the gates would be down for most of the time, except for about 8 minutes during the rush hour periods, which then means people from this side of town can't get to that side of town. There's an emergency, we can't get onto 101, we can't get to the Alameda, there's a problem here, similar, same thing. You know, being a town with a total budget of about $20 million, we don't have the funds to do a under or over, okay? Plus any over would require, you know, coordination with Redwood City and Menlo Park. So I guess the question is, you know, are you planning on helping towns like ourselves and others that are smaller towns but have 3 and 4 rail crossings, but we have no other way to get across?
Yeah, so that study is being done by Caltrain, but I know that they're currently, I believe they're going through a study to help prioritize those crossings and kind of come up with solutions to help strategize for funding to solve kind of those crossings that are still operating.
Would you have any input into how they're prioritizing?
I don't know it off the top of my head, but I could definitely look into it and get back.
Yeah, that would be great because, like I said, you know, we're a small town, but you know, many times we ask for money and people say, we can't. Yes, Robert?
We participated in a few of the coordination meetings by Caltrain on the corridor crossing effort.
Yeah.
They don't have the money to do the greater majority of those kinds of improvements. And as Jeff indicated, part of it is, one is identifying priorities, identifying funding opportunities, but there's also an effort to help streamline how they're done, and who takes the lead in what area of work. And so it's been kind of all over the place as to whether the local jurisdiction is taking it from point A to point C, with a lot of coordination effort with Caltrain versus how that partnership should work to more effectively get the projects done. So that study, as Jeff said, is ongoing. It's really being led by Caltrain, and it's a effort that goes all the way from San Francisco into.
No, I understand that, but I spoke to George about it today, and he said bring it up because it would be certainly something that we need. And being, normally we put in requests for grants, especially large grants, and people say, well, you guys are a rich city, but maybe some of our residents may be rich, but the town is not. And so we would like to impress upon people, we have no other way to get out from one side of town to the other. And it could be a problem during an emergency. And anything we can do to raise the visibility on that and get other people to support us, the better off we will be. Thank you.
And so as we're looking ahead, just to help kind of start thinking about dates, here's some of the factors that are influencing our travel conditions. Rising housing supply and costs, climate risk, our aging population in the county, as mentioned earlier, e-devices, how that plays into it, our transit funding deficit, and then finally our autonomous vehicles as well. Next slide. And so this is where we really want to hear from you. These are the 4 questions we have for the committee. First, what currently works? What's working well in the transportation system today? Next is, what are some key critical transportation challenges in the county? Are there any specific neighborhoods or populations you feel are not served well? And then I think one of my favorite questions is, if you had a magic wand, what one transportation project would you like to see implemented? And so that concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions and would love to hear your feedback.
Well, like I said, I'd like to see the surveys, come down so we can send them out to our people. I think I've talked to you about a future meeting. What works, like I said, I personally, for me, I think that we have a lot of money spent on buses and we're running trains regularly with very few people on them. And so if you want it, maybe your money could be their money could be allocated differently. People always love the express trains, for sure. They're running early in the morning and late at night, or during rush hour times. So that's important. I think that perhaps you should look at the bus routes. I know that they go down to Palo Alto and turn around, but honestly, there's nobody on the buses. And so perhaps you might want to turn them around at Redwood City, save some money. Maybe you don't need as many buses, those type of things. I think looking at the utilization might be helpful in helping you make some decisions, and doing your extra mile for whether Samtrans is going to do that or they're going to go through commute.org. That is something that keeps some people perhaps from using the buses, because there are very few businesses that are right along El Camino, and in fact, even up in Redwood City. Most of right on El Camino has become apartment buildings. So people aren't working at the apartment buildings, they're trying to get to someplace else. So having, additional, whether they're business sponsored buses or they're commute.org buses or smaller buses, which is one of the things that I mentioned when I was on the revitalization and restart for the county after the COVID period, working with Mike Callaghy. We told the people that we need perhaps smaller buses, but that would go just not up and down El Camino. And obviously that didn't, the message didn't get through. Thanks for listening to me.
When I think of the county as a whole and commuting, we have a lot of workers that come from, at least down in this area, we have a lot of workers that come from Alameda County and the Dunbar Bridge. If everybody in the Dunbar Bridge looks over the right, if they're coming this way, and they see that dead railway, and like, when is that going to be opened up? I think everybody who's sitting in that, almost everybody who's sitting in those cars wants that to happen. And I know there's a lot of problems with it, but that's the first thing I think of when I think of people coming here to commute. And what causes a lot of the congestion.
You're talking about the rail,
Like-
The Dunbarton Express,
Dunbarton.
yeah, the
Well, the Dunbarton
Dunbarton
Express is a
Rail.
bus,
Yeah.
and that. I used to take it.
Not that early express.
Yeah, the
Sometimes just
Dunbarton
not
Rail.
show up or
Rail.
show up 10 minutes
That's right.
early and you miss it, but, that having a railway go across the bottom part of the bay would be great. I saw that on the slideshow, it looked like there was a proposal to have a bikeway go on that old railway to get to Redwood City on the track, it looked like that. That's a different idea.
I know that not on the rail that goes over the water, but there's some unused rail lines near East Palo Alto Menlo Park that San Jose is looking at an express bus or that.
I thought that those two connected. Or do they not?
Yeah, there's a Dunbarton Express bus that they have several routes that go
Yeah,
from
the bus
Palo
is also in
Alto
the traffic.
across the way, but I think that the conversation is that there was the rail line that was coming over across that.
Right.
That movable.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, and at one time it was gonna end up down off of Middlefield Road. That line was gonna come through and there was gonna be a station there or near the Facebook. That's what was proposed, and then from there, they would connect up to Caltrain. Or vice versa, and so that kind of died.
I think it is problematic, because if someone wants to take, not a bus, but they have to get on the BART, go all the way around and then take Caltrain in. Or they have to bike across, which not very many people do.
What thank you for the comment, but also another ongoing effort is MTC is looking at possibly bus on shoulders on the bridge itself to help with those the Martin Express as well. So there's a lot of improvements that they're proposing on the bridge itself to help with that. So, good.
I think that's it.
All right.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
The next item is these speed home survey results and recommendations. We might have this, just coming. What about the line? Sound pretty nice.
That was it. The kids' presentation.
No, it's true. Okay.
All right, well, thank you, Chair, members of the committee. We're here, this item, we're gonna be reviewing the results of the speed hump survey that was released this summer. And asking for feedback and recommendation from the committee so that we can bring it forward to the city council. I'm gonna give a brief overview of on the background of how we got to where we are, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Gabriela Ruiz, who's our associate engineer, and she'll kind of walk you through some of the results, and then we will come back to the committee to get final feedback and recommendations.
Could we also have some discussion how the survey worked? Because when I looked at this, it looked like 80% of the people on the survey lived on the street that there was a speed hump. And I was kind of like, yeah, it doesn't really sound realistic.
We can go through that.
Okay, I guess
If
it
that's
has to
street
do
was
with-
Sylvia Lane, you'll have Zach to play him up, yes.
We don't have anybody from Sylvia Lane here.
I didn't get his email.
We don't, well, we have
But I
somebody
guess
from Stockbridge.
some of the methodology in the survey is kind of like, it just, I'm kind of curious about
Sure.
how reliable that information is.
Well, so I'll, like I said, I'll delve into some of the background.
Okay.
A few years back, the town embarked on an effort related to neighborhood traffic management, and getting feedback from the residents townwide with regards to where there might be some speeding or cut through issues, concerns, et cetera. And as part of that effort, a neighborhood traffic management action plan was developed, brought forward to the council, and the council approved installation of various measures as outlined in your report that included such things as increasing the size of speed limit signs in various locations, stop signs to make them more visible, and then probably the most dramatic item is installation of speed humps throughout the town. So this map here kind of shows where those have been installed. And so following the installation of all these humps, we developed a survey and released it to the public to gather feedback from our residents as to how they feel about them, what their feelings are with regards to how effective they might be, whether or not they support them being retained or not. So the outreach survey was conducted through from May through August with a variety of outreach efforts in terms of trying to get that word out. Overall, we got almost 190 responses, 150 of which are from Atherton residents. And then here's a sampling of some of the survey questions that were asked. And as alluded to, we did ask folks, is the hump in front of your house, on your street, in your neighborhood, or on a route that you go someplace? And so when somebody filled out a survey, they had the opportunity to respond on each individual street and indicate their proximity, their interest, whether or not they felt it was effective or not, whether or not it was visible enough, and some input as to sizing and whether or not it should be.
So if I filled out the survey, it was a while ago, but I don't recall. Could I say on this survey that I lived on every street that had speed bumps on it?
In theory, yes.
Okay.
I don't think we had too many of those. Generally speaking, and maybe we can delve into, I mean, if you wanted to get into the nitty gritty, we do have the survey results overall summary provided. But it was approximately correct when when you asked how many people lived in front of a hump, it was no more than 2 or 3 that responded that way. Maybe somewhere around 6 or so responded that it was on their street. So we didn't have an overwhelming list of folks that had.
I saw some that said it was like 34 people said, I live on this street.
Well, that could be the case on Selby.
And in Stockbridge, I was going, really? That many people on that street responded to the survey? And I am also think about what is the main, there are 3 streets here that pop up to me of really cut through streets: Watkins, Stockbridge, and Selby. And it seemed like a vast majority of people didn't want those speed bumps on those 3 streets. And it's probably because I cut through those streets all the time. So.
Well, I see.
But yeah, Selby and Stockbridge were way more pleased to get them out of here.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm gonna use a different term and say those are main roads that people use a lot, and that's why you're gonna get that. When we talk cut through, it's more if you're diverting off one of these routes and cutting through a neighborhood. And so one of the examples of pumps that were installed to reduce cut through would be where we installed them on Linda Vista, Monte Vista, and Fairview, because during the evening commute hour, folks going northbound will see back up on Alameda, turn onto Camino Al Lago and kind of route around and get back across to Atherton Avenue. And so that's more of the cut through, but you are correct. There's a lot of feedback that we got with regards to these main routes. And so with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Gabriella to kind of go through kind of individual streets, how many folks responded and kind of what their feelings are, and some potential recommendations for you to consider as we bring it forward.
So one of the questions I had going through this today was that when you're looking at that, a question would be that I would like to see an analysis on is of the people that lived on the street, what was their thoughts as opposed to everybody who went on that street? Because the people that live on the street, they either want the speed bumps or not because they have kids and they see the traffic going too fast. And when you are looking at the total numbers, which is what was presented here, it includes all the cut-through traffic and all the people that don't live there, and they don't care, they just gotta get from here to there, and they don't want anything to slow them down.
So we do have that information, and we can filter the results that way. For the most part, it's either against or even. And so that is generally speaking. And you'll have, I mean, on a particular street, you'll have a certain number that think they're great and an almost equivalent number that hate them.
So do we have any speed data before the humps and after the humps?
We conducted some, I don't have that.
We just did
information
speed surveys in August on some of the streets. I don't know.
So if you give me a second, I'm gonna try and see if I can show you. If you want, after we go through the presentation, if you want us to pull up a particular street, I'll log into the Survey Monkey and we can kind of pull out that
It
data.
was in the last council meeting. Jerry. That we did the speed surveys. It was either the last one or the one before. It was the speed surveys. You were at that meeting, Commander.
Sure.
Yeah, was it the last meeting? Where we looked at the speed surveys and certified the speed limits?
Oh, that was the last meeting.
Yeah,
was
okay.
at the
Well,
last
they have the speed limit, the average
Right.
speed on that street that was taken in August.
Yeah.
Around the 15th of August.
Yeah,
And that was after the
I guess
speed limit.
I'm just, those are on the ones where we changed the speed limit, isn't it?
No, it was a lot more.
Yeah, it was the critical
We were
speed going over
confirming
multiple
speed
streets.
limits on various streets.
Yeah, you should look at that.
So I might be confused. So do we have pre and post average speed on those given streets? So here's what the average speed was before with the humps went in. Here's the average speed. after.
Not all of them. There were
Of the
certain ones that we
19
had
of the
that maybe
19.
put the black box
I would
up.
say the majority of those streets, we would have pre, but not post for all.
Oh, we should look up the
I
post.
mean, independently of whether people like them or not, it'd be worthwhile knowing
Well,
if the intended consequence was achieved.
I can tell you from experience and from the studies that almost each and every time that we receive a speed complaint from citizens, we have a device that's undercover that we put out there for a 7-day period. Almost in every instance, and it's not indicated a speed problem. Then also the majority of the roads too, the collision picture is extremely low. So
Let me
what
ask
we-
you
so
to
what we
repeat it. The
So
speed
it's
is
more
not,
perception.
speed is,
So just to be more clear.
Yeah.
People's perception is one thing and the reality is another. So I totally get that people's perception when they see a car going by at 25, say on Maple, which is the speed limit, it seems like it's going too fast.
Right.
So in almost every instance, since I've been here almost 9 years, when residents file a speed complaint, one of the first things that we do before we go out and start doing enforcement is we want to see what is the real issue. And so we do a 7-day study, 24 hours every day. Gives us traffic counts. In almost every instance, it does not indicate that there is a speeding problem. And then for those same roads, when we do a collision analysis, there is no real collision issue on the roads in town.
thank you, that's super helpful. then that then begs the question, if, assuming that everything you said is true, which I believe it's true, then what's the purpose in having the humps?
Well, I
I
will
mean, I
say,
shouldn't be asking you, because.
you can, I mean, I have my opinion, it's not just opinion, it's based on experience and it's based on fact. The one issue, why we have the speed humps on Linda Vista, Fairview and others is just for the cut through traffic that we had experienced there. Whether, again, real or perceived, there was some cut through, but when we did speed studies on those roads, particularly during the rush hour commute time, we're not finding a speed problem.
Has it reduced cut through traffic?
I don't have any data on that.
That seems like that would be useful to know.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of information is a little hard to collect.
Measure the results of what
Right.
has been
Yeah.
installed yet.
I'm sorry, I think I've distracted us.
That's okay. So I'll let Gabriella go into this, but before, and then after that, like I said, we can filter down to the resident responses, or I can kind of pull up a couple of things and just respond back as to what folks have said. So, for example, on Glenwood, the responses of the folks that live on the street were more in favor. I think 70% actually said that they liked them. Slightly lower numbers said that they were very effective. But going to turn it back over to Gabriella in terms of what the overall rating was, and then kind of, again, what those recommendations are. Go ahead.
Hi everyone, thank you all for letting us come and present our findings. So we'll start with Glenwood. For, as mentioned, you are able to answer every location as needed, so a lot of the streets may have different amount of responses in total. So for Glenwood, we got almost 100 responses, and the majority we consider the speed humps were effective. This does include somewhat effective, very effective, in both reducing speeding and deterring cut through traffic. The responses for satisfaction of whether they wanted to keep the permanent and visibility for signage and permanent pavement markers were split on Glenwood, as well as we did receive a request for adding an additional site. In addition, the Menlo Park District does designate Glenwood Avenue as a critical emergency response route. We'll go more into detail in a later slide about what that entails. So based on these findings, we do recommend further discussion with the residents because due to the split on the responses and the additional request of adding another one and potentially relocating the existing one. Next slide, please. For Ensenada Avenue, there were 2 segments and both received very similar responses. There were about 100 responses each. The majority also considered the speed bumps to be effective. Although the responses for whether they're very satisfied or dissatisfied were split, the majority of the people, when we're looking into the people that live on the street and in front of their house, they all suggested to making this permanent. So because of that, we are recommending retaining the temporary speed humps with modifications to provide a more gradual start. For Maryland, we got about 90 responses. The majority considered the speed humps effective. Again, the responses on whether they're satisfied with them were split, but the majority of the people who lived on the street all are in favor of having speed humps in that street. So we are recommending making permanent humps based on the responses, or as an alternative, keeping the temporary speed humps that are currently there. For Selby Lane, I'm sure you guys are aware, a lot of people were very dissatisfied, and the majority did request removal. So at this moment, we're recommending the removal of the existing temporary speed bumps. As an alternative, we can look into doing modifications to again provide a more gradual design, so it's not as abrupt. Because a lot of the complaints were it's too big, it's hurt the car, it's a loud noise. So we can look into alternatives to improve how it feels driving through the street. In addition, we can look into the opportunity to relocate the current humps to be between Austin and El Camino Real, which is where we believe most of the speed ramps up if there's sufficient. Okay. Oh, also another signal lane. So this one has 2 segments. Both have received very similar responses. From Stockford Avenue all the way to Atherton. Again, most did consider this, although they are effective, a lot of people were dissatisfied because of the strip slope being too big, signage visibility, and the major requested removal. Similar to the other Selby location, we are recommending removing the existing temporary speed humps, or as an alternative, looking into replacing that with modifications. Stockbridge Lane, over 50 are dissatisfied and 60% requested removal. One of the main concerns was full signage visibility. It's really hard to see the signs.
But how many of those 53% live on the street?
Well, we have one here that was adamantly opposed to it, and it was right next to his house.
Okay, well, that's one thing, moving it from in front of somebody's house. The other thing is, do the people that live on the street feel it's improving? And
No.
That's the type of question that I was, asking, is that,
Yeah, so
generally
all
you're gonna find that people that have kids, they're gonna say, yeah, it helps, and those that don't have kids or their kids are driving say, we don't need them anymore.
For Stockbridge, the 8 residents have reported having it directly in their house or the front of the property. Most were dissatisfied, 6 were dissatisfied, 5 supported removal, and with 1 suggesting making it smaller. But more than 50% also cited poor sign visibility. So the overall matched what the people that lived on the street.
The data's not here to see that, but okay.
Bill, there are actually a lot of, there, along Stockbridge, I don't, you may live near there or something, you may know it as well as I do, but there aren't many kids.
Okay.
There are a few.
Yeah.
But they're never on the street, or you never see them. I've never seen a child.
Well, I do live on that street, and the kids we do see, to go back to the previous discussion, are on those moto bikes or whatever. Generally using one of 2 wheels, zipping on down. So that's a whole different problem. But as the chief explained earlier, I was one of those guys, and thanks for not ratting me out, said, hey, we have a speed problem on Stockbridge, and you came out with the box and you did the data. And I, like you, Steve, was like, oh, okay, it's not a problem. And the problem hasn't gotten any better or any worse visually with the advent of this speed hump up on Stockbridge. It's an annoyance as someone that drives there, and it's not solving a problem that exists. So yeah, I said, let's remove it, and I can help you tomorrow if you'd like to do that.
Bill, there's another problem with the speed bump, which all cars face up to the table. I live on Stockbridge. For some reason, the city put it. We actually face on Ralston, so long narrow lot, front on Ralston, side on Stockbridge, our master bedroom with windows and doors that we open in the summer so we get breezes in, and where we sit in the afternoon out on the first floor. It's 50 feet from there.
Yeah, I have one here in front of my house. I hear it, and they also rev it, their engines as soon as they go over it. I got it.
Yeah, okay.
I got it.
So can I finish?
Yeah.
It's not a period for public comment right now.
So, after we finish.
After the presentation, we can discuss this.
All right, okay, fine.
But I walk that street,
Okay.
I
we
see
can
what
talk about
does and
that
doesn't
later.
happen, it doesn't affect it except
I
right.
got it. I got it.
So for this street, we are also recommending their removal or reviewing the opportunity to relocate the house closer to El Camino Real.
No, remove.
So not all is bad. We have Fairview next, and the majority did consider the speed bumps were effective. Although the responses overall for the satisfaction was split between dissatisfied and satisfied, all the residents that live on the street are in favor of having speed bumps. Over 70% also indicated that signage is good, just right. So at this moment, we are recommending maintaining the temporary speed bumps in the current condition. Very similarly, in Linda Vista Avenue, the majority also considered that the speed bumps are effective, and all the residents who live on the streets requested keeping the speed bumps. The signage was adequate. Okay. And we are recommending maintaining the temporary speed bumps in the current condition. For Monte Vista Avenue, about half of the speed bumps are effective, and all the residents on the street indicated that the speed bumps are too small and short. However, the majority did say that signs and pavement markings are hard to see. So at this moment, we are recommending to retain the temporary speeds, but having improvements made to make signage easier to see, as well as the addition of pavement markings to increase driver awareness.
Are these the same size as the sister streets?
So Fairview, Linda Vista, Monte Vistas are smaller than the Selby ones.
And then, yeah, but
Well, yeah, all
all
three are.
Vista wants them to be bigger and the other two didn't really say. Okay, cool.
Are the permanent ones gonna be smaller than the temporary ones that you put in?
We have more flexibility to do that.
For Maple, the majority said that the speed bumps were effective in reducing speeding and deterring caution traffic. And none of the residents who live on the street requested removal, so they're in favor of retaining the temporary speed as our conversation. Walk-ins gets a little more complicated, so the majority does say they're effective, however, the response is whether they're satisfied, should we keep it per minute, and the visibility of signage and pavement markings were split. When we took a closer look at the residents who live on the street, all agreed that they're effective and nobody requested removal. We did also receive an additional request to have another set of speed humps added to walk-ins. So at this moment, we're also recommending further discussion with the residents doing more outreach to see if whether an additional set will up and potentially relocating the existing. Okay, so another major topic was that we did meet with Menlo Park Fire District last week to discuss concerns and potential impacts that this becomes could do in emergency response times. Their concerns included significant delays, risk of damage to their trucks, and of course, potentially injuring the personnel. The fire district did say that their preference is to have no traffic calmings in streets that are designated as a critical response routes. However, having the cutouts and the speed bumps does allow the trucks to go through without significantly reducing the street, which is an acceptable option. So moving forward, we will continue to collaborate, especially at Glenwood, which is a designated critical street.
Okay, so with that, we can answer questions from the committee. We can pull up from the SurveyMonkey kind of, this is what the residents on a particular street said. And so I'll leave it to the chair as to whether you want to open it to public comment first, before you ask questions, or after. We have one resident here from Stockbridge, and then a representative of a resident off of Flora and Wilkins, yeah. Off of Toledo's.
Well, let's start with the committee questions and comments. My comment is that after listening to the police chief, that so much of these are about perception rather than reality. It does seem like the speed humps on the cut through streets that you mentioned, that 3, 4 of them, that maybe that does discourage people to not take that street and deal with traffic a little more. But, and I had a question, I've forgotten it. When did we put in all these speed humps? Like Selby and Stockbridge?
So the first one went in on Glenwood, and that's probably been there, I want to say maybe about 1.5 years ago, maybe 2 years ago. And then, so they kind of went in kind of waves. So we did Glenwood first, and then I think Linda Vista, Monte Vista, Berry were probably after that. And then probably near the end of last year was when the ones on Stockbridge and Selby.
About a year.
So that's probably when those went in, and then the most recent installation was on Maple in response to the residents, which you had heard from.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the tiered installation.
Because I can see, especially since we don't have Selby residents here, the minute we say get rid of them, there's gonna be a riot. Because they get very vocal about this, but I don't think that, I understand the deterrent effect on these cut through streets. I don't know if they're worthwhile on some of the main streets though.
I think that the cut through is creating an inconvenience, right? And because I don't think there was a speed problem there before. Following along with the perception, that we've had on Stockbridge, in my experience, I'm sure elsewhere. So that you're really just creating an inconvenience because you're not trying to enforce anything that is out of the way, unless someone's really speeding to get there. I've sat in the traffic from Las Lomitas to Atherton Avenue, and it's 3 minutes and 14 seconds. So it's 3 minutes of not driving. I mean, not actively driving, so that can weigh on people's minds. But I don't know how big that problem is. But I don't live on that street. It's not a problem for me. Relative to the other ones, I mean, there's a flurry of them that sort of sprouted up like mushrooms. I mean, we had a lot of conversation about the Selby lane around the school. We had a conversation about Berry Lane, and I think a gentleman came and presented, and something went through his fence. And I think that, the effect that the speed bumps are having on slowing traffic in those areas, if we're doing the right job. But then the rest of them sort of just sprouted up at some point. And I think, to your point, Steve, they're answering problems that didn't otherwise exist. And I want to give credit to our police department that enforcement goes a long way. I'm a product of Atherton Police Department's enforcement in my driving career, and there are certain intersections where I still stop because that cop's going to hide there. So along those lines, that point is to say, look, if we continue with the presence that we have in our law enforcement in these areas during these times, that I imagine some certainty that we can affect the behavioral change in the motoring public that we wish to have, whatever that is. But I don't think there's an immediate speed problem. So if there's an enforcement and an understanding that you're being watched in this area, because folks are doing their job, then that might have the effect that doesn't involve, taking a car to Menlo Shell to get repaired, or stopping and starting in front of people's houses, or driving around the speed humps. I see, I don't know if that's your house, but whoever has the one on Stockbridge just keeps moving the rocks closer and closer to the road to discourage folks from coming around that, right? So let's just do away with all of that. And, you know, then my last point is at some point, we just have to do something, right? So in some of these streets, it's like the vast majority of the respondents who live on that street have said they don't want it. So the next step is to have more conversation and potentially do something differently. No, right? I mean, at some point they said they don't want it. When do we listen? When do we go, yeah, okay, the people have spoken.
So, Bill, you're a resident of Glenwood.
Yeah.
What do you feel about the speed bump?
They've slowed the traffic down. We have a lot of little kids on the street that we didn't used to have. And I think that they do make noise. People go over them and then they speed up, which makes noise. The pickup trucks with the nails and screws and stuff like that in the back go over them very fast and they put stuff out on the road. But, you know, I think the majority of the people felt like they not only do they feel that it's helping, they keep asking me when we're getting the second one. So they want it. The only comment I've gotten that has been negative has been from people that don't live on that street that say, why can't you move that or make it a low one like is on going out towards 101? It's not big.
On Bennett, yeah. No.
Yeah, because you're slowing me down and I like to just get down there and shoot down the road. You know, is the traffic during the regular part of the day bad? No, but it is in the morning and it is in the evening. You know, it's the rush hour time. And so I know that you may remember Joe Davis said, put it in front of my house. His wife doesn't want it in front of the house. She's the one who said no. Okay? And so, you know, nobody wants the noise. I mean, I'm right next to Joe, and so I hear the noise. It's a little bit of an inconvenience, but I think it's added, but it doesn't take away for the need for enforcement too. And so, you know, the people that live on the street would prefer that, to keep it and to add the second one, which would then keep people from, you know, as soon as you go over it, floor it.
So,
Which makes sense.
if I can make a suggestion, if there aren't any more questions on the presentation, my suggestion would be to open it to public feedback, and then we can go back to each individual location to get overall committee response on each of the locations.
So I'd like to make just two comments. One, I'm gonna reiterate what I already said, which is, I think when we undertake projects like this, we ought to be very clear about what's the problem we're solving for. And is it a real problem or is it a perceived problem? So I appreciate the information from our police chief. And secondly, I think citizens expect us to be making data-driven decisions, which means that it would be wise of us to do legitimate speed and traffic count before and after as a way to measure the effectiveness and did it have its intended outcome rather than anecdotal.
It could also
Points
save
of
some wasted effort in the future. We know that, in fact, it doesn't really affect speed. And if you think that speed is your problem, then humps aren't the solution.
Exactly.
Yeah, the traffic count component makes total sense for the cut-through side. Right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not the study guy, but the summer months are gonna have less cut-through traffic if you're looking at folks who are involved in school or pickup or whatnot, but there's lots of factors.
On every street, we do a traffic survey periodically where we look at the 85% speed at that time. Okay. And that information is presented to the council to certify that the speed that we have set is within acceptable range. Normally, they're a little bit higher than what they are, but there's a threshold that they have to have. And if it exceeds that threshold, then we're obligated to raise the speed limit. okay? And I can tell you on my street, even though we had the speed limit, speed bump there, the average speed on a 25-mile-an-hour street is about 33 miles an hour, average. So, you know, what would it have been if there wasn't a speed bump? I don't remember. I'd have to go back to a past study. But they do the speed studies regularly. You know, they set up the little, it's not a camera, but a box that goes on the telephone pole and it records the speed that's going through there. And for a week or 2 weeks, whatever it is, and they collect the data, they know how many cars went through, et cetera. So there are a number of streets that are cut through. My street is a cut through, really. People that are coming off the Middlefield and they want to shoot down all the way, get to Alameda or to El Camino, and they're in a hurry to go do that in the morning and in the evening. So it's a problem, especially as little kids have moved on to the street. Other streets, we put speed bumps on. Berry Lane, people came and begged this committee, and I think the police were part of that discussion. But they had the kids from, I think it was Menlo School, shooting through there at lunchtime, back and forth, I think is what the complaint was. So there were some that came up that way. Other ones, I don't recall how we got them on each of the different streets, but there were some where people actually came in and asked, and I think PD was part of the discussion on this.
Okay, let's stop it here and then we'll do the public comment. You wanted to make a comment?
Yes, I have a feeling I may have already
But if
made.
you can say who you are.
Yeah, you
made
made it. My welcome.
Sir, you need to say who you are and where you live.
Larry Lowry on Stockbridge Avenue. I guess there's three issues. Is there a speed problem? And I don't have the data, but it sounds like there is data, and it sounds like that argues against it. Are speed bumps effective or not if there is a speed problem? And then there's a third issue, which is particularly pertinent to us, which is where do you place it if you have that issue? On the second one, frankly, because the noise has been so disruptive to us, I walk constantly. If you ask, people will know me, 20, 30,000 steps a day, okay? So I've been up and down Stockbridge a couple times a day from Selby Lane all the way to El Camino. It impacts the speed right at the speed bump, but not much before and not much after. And ironically, the speeding, if there is a speeding thing, it's between Austin and El Camino. That's a straight shot. They speed down that street a lot. Where we are, there's a curve in the road first, and there's a stop sign at Austin. It's not where the speed problem is. And then, always things get missed. Somehow it got missed that where they placed this was literally 50 feet from where our master bedroom is. We used to keep the French doors open to cool it down in the summer and get fresh air, and we couldn't do that anymore because you can't sleep with that. We used to sit on our back patio and read. You can't do that because you got that constant bang, 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 bang. And in the morning with the trucks, it's particularly bad because they you hear it all over the place. So at a minimum, I think it would really behoove the town to be even more thoughtful than it has as to exactly where do we put these. If you're gonna put them on a street, put them where the speeding really is, and put them where they'll have the least damage to the people that live there. And I wouldn't just ask people, do you think speed bumps are effective? Do you like them or not? I say, okay, you've answered that. Now, would you welcome one in front of your house? And if everybody says no, then, you gotta go back to the other questions. If somebody says yes, and they want one there, and their neighbors, it's not gonna bother them too much, go ahead with it. But, in fact, my perception of what's happened, because I've stood there and watched this, I'm trying to figure out if there's any way to get rid of the noise, and there isn't. I watch the traffic and the speeders are gonna speed down the rest of the street. They come up to the hump and they either blast across it and you get particularly loud. Or they slow down before it and then take off after it.
Yeah.
Or the really bad ones come racing down, they screech to a halt. And then immediately when they get over it, they peel out. And the only thing I can conclude is I think they get pissed off because the thing's there. So, I mean, they try to show how upset they are. Maybe because I'm standing there observing it or whatever, but they peel out and make as much noise as they can going out. So it's very disruptive for anybody that lives right adjacent to one of these. And I don't think it really helps on the street. More than 10 or 20 feet either side.
My view, first off, I'm right next to the speed bump, okay? So I share your pain, okay? And I share your observation if there's just one speed bump. That's why we talked to Robert in the town about putting a second one in. So if you go down, like, for example, on Orange Avenue, okay, that's very effective. They have 3 speed bumps on that quarter mile and they're spaced a certain amount, so there's no way that you can really speed up and take over.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a thing that we expect Robert and his team to come up with and work with and to say, hey, you know, a second one might be more effective here and we'll go look at it from that standpoint. So in some cases, if you go through a lot of the speed bumps that are in other jurisdictions right around here, they have so many speed bumps, and they're not giant like our temporary ones, okay? But you have to slow down for those things, and they're spaced apart so that you just can't really speed up. So they do keep the speed down at 25 or even 20 miles an hour going through that. So just drive down Orange Avenue and see how that goes. I mean,
I gave up going
you
down
can't
Orange
speed it. So, anyway, so, you know, not to monopolize the thing, but I feel your pain. I hear the stuff. I hear the ecology trucks that are not even picking up trash in our town, but they're shooting down the road at 5:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning to go pick up in Menlo Park. Okay, okay. They don't slow down for the speed bumps on Glenwood either, by the way. So I hear it.
Yeah,
So I know. So, you know, I'm happy to talk to you after the meeting so we don't waste everybody else's time.
We can, let me just say, I'm not arguing with you, and I don't think we're having an argument. If there's a street where the resident really wants these, and they're willing to make the trade-off, and whatever it is, and my gosh, it
That's
helps
what we're
them,
here to talk about.
they should have them.
Yeah, I got it.
I'm just saying, don't put one right next to our bedroom door. It doesn't help anything, and I'm not the only one there.
Let's move on. Did somebody else have a comment?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you can
Come up.
Sure.
Up here.
Hi, everybody.
Right.
I'm David. I mentioned I represent the family that lives on Bohemus. And whether or not they turn left or right on Selby, they're going to hit either Almondrell Avenue or Tuscaloosa. There's 2 speed humps on Selby. Like you said, a very frequently used road. So those in particular are the reasons I'm here to talk to you guys about those 2 speed humps. I also personally drive over these speed humps on Ansternal as I drive to work every day. And I wanted to mention briefly that we are not opposed to speed humps as a solution because on Ansternal, for example, they do work. I think they're effective in front of a school where they matter the most. I think they're essential there for safety. So quickly to validate Mr. Lidmer's comments, I think having the 2 close to each other does work. However, I drive a small car and it's such a jarring experience driving over those temporary speed humps. And my car actually bottoms out sometimes because they're so tall, right? They're so abrupt. So in those instances, we would highly prefer that they are made into permanent but more gently sloped speed humps, right? The reason I bring that up is because these plastic temporary ones, actually, instead of slowing you down to what the speed limit should be, whether it's 50 miles an hour or 25 miles an hour, they actually slow me down to 2 or 3 miles an hour, right? They're just so harsh that you cannot drive over them at the speed limit. So people would be less angry if they could drive at the speed limit of 50 miles an hour over them, right? Which would achieve the purpose of slowing traffic down. Right. Yeah, so overall, I also want to commend the survey and Robert's work on the survey. We think the results are valid. Like you said, people spoke up more about Selby Lane because that's where they care about they impact the most. So, I'm speaking in favor of the results. I think they are legitimate, and we also like the recommendations that the Public Works team has put together, meaning, if people want to see them removed, that we should remove them. Where they should be made permanent, they should be made in a more gentle design range. And lastly, as a general question to everybody, we're curious, what would it look like if you were to follow the recommendation and have these removed? What is the timeline to get temporary speed bumps off the roads, and how much longer after that would you implement something more permanent but gentler slope? Those are my general comments. Thank you.
We don't have anybody online.
We do not know.
All right, back to questions and discussion.
Permanent ones would be quieter, right? The noise is from the plastic deforming.
No, it's from the car, from the
From
trucks
us in the
bouncing
back of
on
the
them.
pickup.
Oh, so it's from like the shocks in the vehicles. Oh.
So
So plastic ones go up like that.
I drive Bay Road all the time. You can take those speed humps at 25 miles an hour and nobody speeds in between. It's just not worth the trouble because they're about 4 speed humps. So it seems to me the solution is either have them frequent enough that people are gonna be discouraged from increasing their speed in between them.
Right.
And make them, the plastic ones are just too abrupt. And make them that you can go the speed limit or close to the speed limit over. The speed limit on Bay Road is 30 and they're comfortable.
You can take those at 30.
Yeah, you can. I've got a Jeep. I can take them at 60, but they're most, I see most people doing about 25 over because they're more comfortable. So I think that should be our long-term solution, is determine where we want these and put them close enough together and make them permanent so that people are gonna have a reasonable way to.
And smooth.
And smooth, and just, those are just really jarring.
Yeah.
And I think on these cut-throughs like Berry, maybe the temporary speed bumps are good because they're effective of discouraging people from going, I don't wanna go over that lousy speed bump. So.
You can go 25 over the Monte Vista ones too, which is the speed limit.
Yeah, the problem that we have with the Monte Vista ones is that they're not rated for as much traffic as
Yes.
go on Selby or Stockbridge, et cetera. So, we can run through each individual street and kind of walk through the recommendation of what the committee wants to recommend. So as far as steps moving forward, there's a slide at the end that was going to be after all the questions. And basically what it is that your recommendations tonight would be forwarded to the council at their next study session to get their direction, their feedback and direction. Removal is relatively easy if that's the recommendation. If the recommendation is to add or change the humps, then the likelihood is that it's going to be a longer process because we need to engage with the folks. Let's say, like as we talk about Glenwood, if the recommendation is going to be to kind of move and put 2, we need to communicate with the residents and particularly get the buy-in from those that are going to be impacted with the new locations.
But part of the thing, Robert, is if you take the recommendation and they're saying, you make them smaller, they won't make the same amount of noise. Perhaps, we don't know, but it doesn't seem that they make that noise when I drive over the ones
Yeah,
on
so,
Orange, for example, or Bay.
I'm gonna preface that buying off-the-shelf temporary units, your selection is a little limited. We did, these being modular, there is actually a piece that can go in between. So right now it's ramp up, ramp down. So there's another piece, flat piece that you can get to go in between, which would make it a little less jarring. And so those we can purchase as we talk about modification. But for the majority, the recommendation is actually removal. And this was in response to a town-wide study, and I think that the committee has seen that it's better to have each street come in with their survey. I mean, we have a process that was built for the neighborhoods to come in and request, such as what was done on Maple. So there's a survey that's issued to everybody on the street. There's a certain response rate that's supposed to be coming in favor to make sure that the greater majority of the residents on the street support it, and particularly those that would be affected directly. And so rather than this more higher level mode, it's recommended that it go back down to that specific request.
Do we need to have that before we send recommendations to them?
No, I mean, if the feedback is, let's say, like if we talk about Glenwood, there's a request, as you heard from Bill, from the residents on the street, to have to shift them around, have a second set. We're recommending that, as I say, we can do that, but we would do that following direct outreach to the street, to the folks on the street. And so the recommendation specifically for Glenwood is to have a further discussion with the residents with regards to the request. The feedback generally on the hump that was there was positive from the residents on the street. And so we are open to adding that extra one, but we want to make sure that the residents go into it understanding this is and agree to where they go.
And would you be looking at permanent ones that are more drivable?
That is a conversation that we can have. We don't have, I'm gonna say, permanent ones would go in when we have a paving project. And so I don't want to put a permanent one in on a street that's in poor shape.
Right.
If the street's in poor shape, then the street would have to be fixed before a permanent one goes in. If the street is in good shape, then we can theoretically add permanent humps with, let's say, next summer's paving projects, but we wouldn't go in between.
And would we look at having that extension on these?
Well, the extension I can buy.
It seems like the extension sounds like a good thing for all these locations.
Well, if you intend to keep them.
The remaining
locations.
And the many ones that are jarring.
Yeah.
There are some that are not jarring. Maple is not, because they're
Yeah.
tiny. And then the ones on Monte Vista.
Yeah, so those are all the
High-
same.
the
for
high
local
volume
ones.
ones are
So
all
the high
jarring.
volume ones are the ones that we're concerned about. Again, the majority of those are recommended to be removed. And so, like I said, I think let's start with Glenwood. If the committee is recommending that we have that discussion, I mean, that the committee is supportive of shifting and adding the hump with further discussion with the residents to kind of finalize their concurrence.
I think Gabrielle was kind enough to present a slide that mentioned the fire department and fire district.
We would have to coordinate with the fire department as well.
Yeah, because I mean, and I I don't know how you do it, but I would assume that the information that the fire department would add relative to the impact on response times might be of interest to the residents, not only on that street, but, you know, upstream of that, because they would be.
Okay, so are people in favor of a restudy Glenwood with the possibility of putting 2 speed humps on there?
That's what Glenwood residents want.
Well,
Agree with the
I'm
recommendation.
I'm asking what the committee wants to do. We'll come up with an answer. So all in favor of that?
Aye.
Prestige.
Sure.
Okay,
Right,
so that one's done.
okay, next one is Encinal, and the recommendation is just to leave, pretty much to leave them as it is. There's been adequate support to
But cut them back when you can. Cut them back to the height.
Lower profile.
It's what we heard from the person that drives on them all the time.
During school hours, it is great that everybody has to slow to 5 miles an hour at speed bumps next to the school. I can understand that during not school hours, it's really, really, really annoying because I have to go over the ones on Watkins. So I just want to put that out there that they are great during school hours when everybody has to just gently go over the speed bumps, very slowly next to the kids.
Okay, so that it's
Kelly,
right
you
now.
guys have been out there on Encinal a fair amount, right? I mean, there's visibility for you folks.
Yeah, when you're talking about the schools, that's one thing that I do support is the speed humps for the schools. They've been very well received. Again, whether there's a speed problem or not, because during school drop off and pickup, it's hard to get over 15 miles an hour, which the school zones or the speed zones have just been reduced to. So for Selby Lane School, for Encinal, we don't have them at Laurel yet, but it could be a possibility there. I think that they're very effective and marked.
The lower profile, since the traffic isn't gonna let you get up to much speed anyways.
I'm not familiar with the profile there, but if it's the insert, if an insert could be put there, as we've discussed, I think that would be
Okay, so
we
Encinal,
can
keep both of them.
keep both and add the insert.
Keep both and recommend the insert.
Okay.
Okay. Barry is just leave the temporary humps as they are.
That's
Everybody likes it,
what
yeah.
people want.
We support that as well.
Selby, between Austin and Serrano, the recommendation is to remove.
Right.
Good idea.
I would like to suggest on that one, Robert, is there's one set of speed humps at the school. Much like Encinal, I think there should be one on either side of the school drop off and pick up area for the same reasons we have at Encinal.
One of the thoughts, not necessarily related to, I mean, kind of related to the speed humps, is we have the raised crosswalk here at Fair Oaks. And maybe that would be ultimately a better type of solution at the school.
But if you're talking permanent,
But that would be permanent.
sometime down the road, I was thinking now it'd be easy to move the set there and make it same model as Encinal. Don't disagree with the permanent solution, but I imagine that's gonna be more than a year out, 2 years out.
Okay. So if we're talking relocation of the hump and adding another one, then we definitely need to talk to the residents about it. So removal, I mean, it's not really much in terms of notification, but if we're gonna shift things around, then we definitely need to talk.
So we're saying to, just to clarify, all 3 speed humps on Selby to be removed.
Like I say, this is the stretch between Austin and Serrano. We'll talk about the other Selby. So this is just downstream from the school.
Right, I think
Towards El Camino.
relative to Austin, between Austin and Serrano, the recommendation was removal. I support that. The next one would be the one that's already in front of the school.
Okay, we're gonna stick with the first one,
Wow.
get that.
There is no other one on Selby, I don't believe. I think we just have
There's
the
one
one.
between Stockbridge and.
No, there's another one. As you go from that location towards the school, there's another set.
There's another one? Okay.
3.
No, the other one, the other Selby is the other Selby.
Okay.
It's like a different direction.
Commonly referred to as west.
Okay, so, what does the committee say on the one between Austin and Serrano? Remove.
Support the removal.
Remove? Okay,
Okay.
that one removed.
And then
Stockton and Almondrell.
before we jump off to the other Selby, we can talk to residents fronting the school as to whether or not they would support a second pump there.
Yes.
Yeah, that suggestion actually came up from a couple of Selby residents, if you remember during comments from.
It did come up, and they suggested the slightly elevated low profile one, as I recall, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So discussion with those residents, two-phased approach, add the second one, much like the model at Encinal, in lieu of the eventual permanence of the raised crosswalk. It's here at the table. Table.
Okay,
Now turning the corner
turning the corner.
on west Selby.
So basically, call it from Stockbridge to Atherton Avenue.
Yeah.
That stretch, recommendations to remove those as well.
So supported.
That's removal support. Okay.
Does it slow the traffic down or?
There's
Slows too much.
I've been broken out and run down there.
And then Stockbridge, again, between us and Toronto, recommendations to remove.
Support.
Yeah, very much.
Okay. I'm gonna lump these all together, Fairview, Monte Vista, Linda Vista, retain the temporary and look at adding some additional stuff on, I think it was Monte Vista to improve visibility. Okay, then the last one is
That's not the
Maple.
last one.
I'm sorry, Maple.
We have done.
Everybody's happy.
Yeah, if everybody's happy on Maple.
Watkins is the last one.
Okay.
Then
Everybody on Maple's happy, leave those temporary. And then the last one, apologies, is Watkins. And I'll have the chief talk about what he would like to.
It was just
Just
income, well, okay, and just for clarity, I live in the park, not in a trailer, but in a house. I live in the park. So I'm talking with different residents, they do like the one speed hump where it is, but similar to the school situation, you have a lot of traffic and you have a lot of parents, and a lot of kids. The park entrance and the park exit, so the set that's there right now is just west of the park entrance, which works. But then, of course, you get speeding going towards the park exit and traffic coming up from Middlefield, so that their suggestion is something similar, one on either side. Park entrance and park exit.
So if that's a recommendation, again, that would be following outreach and coordination.
Meeting with the chief.
Slash resident.
Or
Slash resident.
Or the real person in charge, my wife, you can talk to.
Right.
yeah, that doesn't work as a person who goes up and down Watkins on foot a lot. People are speeding and then they stop and they go bloop and they speed again.
Yeah,
and
that's
they
the problem with
stop
these
and they
speed
go
bumps.
bloop.
But
And
that was
we
the-
were walking with
that's why we need
our
more.
10-year-old down Watkins to get to I'm a Maple resident, and to get to the shops and the food down there on El Camino, and some car went whizzing by us, and we're like, what the heck are they doing? And then they stopped for, not for our kid, but for the speed bump and go, bloop. Oh my gosh.
Okay. So that could be, look at two.
Looking at 2 on Watkins and following,
2 east of the tracks.
Yes,
2
east of the tracks.
tracks.
We were walking up west of the tracks.
yeah, this is all east of the tracks. So basically near, Burns.
Outboard.
So that stretch from the exit to Burns would be that extra.
And put the insert in, possibly.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions? Appreciate your feedback, and as I said, the majority of those will be removed. We can reuse some of them, and for some of those relocations or for those extra humps that we'd be putting in it. We'd have to buy some of those inserts.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right, done. And that last item is police, traffic unit.
But we go into real detail on both of those,
I
right?
read the data.
But no, I'm kidding. So unless you have any questions, I mean, it's pretty straightforward valid data, but I'm always, able to answer questions. But again, and I spoke to, we were recipients of an Office of Traffic Safety grant, and so we're complementing our normal efforts, augmenting that. I'm really excited about DUI checkpoints, which we came from Washington State. We're never allowed to do that as a state trooper. I was wanted to. So we're excited about that, and we'll be partnering with the Highway Patrol and our other agencies.
Coming back to Stockbridge.
For a DUI checkpoint for you? Yes.
No, not.
Oh.
When you going out drinking?
It will be a waste of your time, but you're welcome to do it. El Camino at Stockbridge. Or do you not say?
What?
Well,
Where
the
we
DUI,
would do it?
where's it gonna be?
We don't know yet. But as part of that grant, we just recently, conducted a crosswalk safety enforcement effort
Awesome.
on Selby at ECR, where we do have significant issues, and I know we're working on a traffic signal there eventually, but in the hour and a half that we were there, we made 13 stops with 13 citations.
Wow.
Good for you.
Tons of crosswalk violations,
What's that?
crosswalk
Yes,
violations.
yes.
And one DUI, made one DUI.
We had a DUI arrest there that, almost hit a pedestrian and then killed his dog.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was not part of the crosswalk enforcement.
No, that was prior to that, and it kind of
That
was
was
impetus to the
$90,000.
response to it.
Yeah, that was unfortunate.
Okay, so that would be the end of it.
Motion to.
well, I'm gonna remind folks that our active transportation plan survey is out. Encourage folks to participate and give us feedback on active transportation improvements throughout the town. We do have a meeting
Thursday.
on Thursday here at the council chambers, seeking public input.
For east of
So
Middlefield.
we kind of split it up in terms of who we were talking to. So this is the east of El Camino. But anybody is welcome to come and participate and give feedback, get the word out. We want to hear from our residents as to what they would like to see with regards to bike and ped improvements throughout the town. Okay,
Good.
thank you.
Can I for one other just comment?
Let's do it after the meeting. Motion to
Seconded.